Welcome to the laws of cooking on Shabbat. This will be part 35 of the class. We are working in the sefer called Halacha Birura by Rav David Yosef Shlita. In today's topic, we're going to speak about anything that is done through Chilul Shabbat. Anything that is done through the desecration of Shabbat, you cannot benefit from it on Shabbat. כשם שאסור להשתמש בשבת, just like it is forbidden for one to use on Shabbat, בדברים שנעשתה בהם מלאכה אסורה בשבת, with things where a forbidden malacha was done with them on Shabbat, כך, so too, אסור ליהנות בשבת, it will be forbidden for one to benefit on Shabbat, mikol from sounds, umar'eh from sights, Verech and from smells haba'im machmat chilul Shabbat that come because of desecration of Shabbat. Now, Rabotai, if you guys recall, in the first classes where we began, we started speaking about if a person cooked intentionally food on Shabbat or even by accident, right? We said that food is not allowed to be eaten, or any other malacha where because of that malacha something comes out from it. We explained that you're not allowed to go out and benefit from it on Shabbat. Another case, you boiled the water on Shabbat. Can you use it? You're not allowed to use it. And so on and so forth. Rabotai, we gave many classes on all these halachot. Nevertheless, today comes Rav David Yosef Shlita and he says something even more powerful. He says, just like you understand that if you did something forbidden, like cooking or boiling water on Shabbat, and you're not allowed to use them on Shabbat, understand that those halachot also apply to sound, if you want to listen to music, or to sight, if you're going to have a painting, or you want to watch TV, or Rabotai, smell. We're going to see, he's going to give us all the different examples. For example, you went to the garden, or in your backyard, you have nice flowers, you ripped it up. Can you smell that on Shabbat? All these things that Rabotai we're going to see, it is forbidden for one to use, whether it's going to be the smell, the sight, or the sound. V'lachen, and therefore, im hipilu et machshir haradio. If one went on and he turned on the radio station, or machshir hamashmir klishir b'Shabbat, or he turned on a device that plays music on Shabbat, asur l'shmo mehem b'Shabbat. It is forbidden for one to listen from that music on Shabbat. V'hainu, and he says, and that means to say, afilu k'shehfa'ulu bebeitam shel shechenim michelalei Shabbat. Even if this was turned on in the houses of the neighbors who desecrate Shabbat, you are not allowed to listen to their music. A lot of times it happens on Shabbat. Unfortunately, these people, they don't understand the severity of desecrating Shabbat. What do, Rabotai? They have barbecues. No, Rabotai, very big no. They play music. They have relatives coming over to their house. You see it, Rabotai, you smell it, and you even hear the music on Shabbat. Comes Rav David Yosef Shlita. If you are walking through such a house on Shabbat, you are not allowed to listen to their music. Or if you live in a building and your neighbor who doesn't keep Shabbat and he turned on a certain music which you might even like, you are not allowed to benefit from that music. You cannot listen to it and enjoy it. And nevertheless, he says, nevertheless, Rav David Yosef Shlita says, you are not obligated to come out of your house just because of your neighbor, and so on and so forth. And even if somebody went out and he turned on these devices on Shabbat by accident, he didn't have any intention. It is forbidden for one to listen from them on Shabbat. Rabotai, you see how far this goes, where, this question is asked many times. Rabbi, can we listen to music? Or better yet, Rabbi, can we watch TV if my parents who don't keep Shabbat, they turned it on? All of these questions. Rabotai, you're not allowed to benefit from no TV station, from no music, from nothing if it's done on Shabbat. whether it's by accident or intentional, one is not allowed to have any benefit. Why is it forbidden for one to benefit from it on Shabbat? שהרי מעשה שבת אסור בשבת עצמה אף כשנעשה בשוגג. Rabotai, since for a Shabbat action is forbidden on Shabbat itself, even when it was done unintentionally. Rabotai, we need to understand there's no difference if you're doing an act on Shabbat which is not allowed to be done, whether you did it intentional or by accident. They are assured to be done. So if that is the case, Rabotai, when a person went ahead and he turned on the music even by accident, or TV even by accident, or anything else, since the act itself is assured to be done even by accident, therefore we're not going to allow you to listen to music or to even watch the TV. Continues Rav David Yosef, וכן, and so too, אסור לשמוע כל הבאה מתחת הרדיו שיש בה יהודים מחללי שבת. And so too it is forbidden for one to listen to the sound that comes from a radio station where you have over there Jews that are working and they are desecrating Shabbat. ואפילו כשהדליקו את המכשיר בערב שבת. Even if you turn on your radio station on Erev Shabbat, still on Shabbat you're not going to allow to be listening to the radio station when you know that the people that are playing or speaking the radio station are Jews that are desecrating Shabbat at that moment. Now, Rabotai, there's a very big difference between this halakha and the prior halakha. The prior halakha spoke about turning on the radio or the device on Shabbat itself. Over here, Rabotai, we're speaking about even if I turn it on Erev Shabbat, and the people that are transmitting the information or the news into the radio are Jews that desecrate Shabbat, we're going to tell you you're not allowed to go ahead and listen to the news even then. Continues Rav David Yosef Shlita, and he says, Va'av achar Shabbat, and so too after Shabbat, יש להחמיר שלא לשמוע הקלטה של דברים שהקלטו בשבת מתחנת רדיו שיש בו יהודים מחללי שבת. Now, Rabotai, over here he says one should be stringent. He says right over here, Rabotai, יש להחמיר. One should be stringent. 1 second. Right? He says even after Shabbat, one should be stringent not to listen to recordings that were recorded on Shabbat from a radio station where you had Jews there at that moment that were desecrating Shabbat. Now, Rabotai, this is a very big problem. Let's say a person right now, he lives in America. And now you have Jews in Israel. Watch this very carefully. After Shabbat, Rabotai, you want to go and you want to see what happened in the news. But if that news that happened transpired on Shabbat, and the Jewish people over there were desecrating Shabbat, we're going to tell you should be stringent and not to even listen to the news of the radio even after Shabbat. That's what Rav David Yosef Shlita goes over here. One should be stringent and not to listen to any recording which was recorded from a radio station, needless to say from the TV or news or anything else, through Jewish people that desecrate Shabbat after Shabbat. You should not listen, Rabotai. Preferably a person should be stringent. Now Rav David Yosef Shlita is going to move on to the next point. We said that there are 3 things we're going to speak about: sound, sight, and smell. Now we're moving to sight. Continues Rav David Yosef Shlita, and he says, V'chen, and so too, asur likro devarim shenichtavu b'Shabbat. It is forbidden for one to read the things which were written on Shabbat itself. Al yidei Yehudim michalel Shabbat, through a Jew who desecrates Shabbat. If somebody, Rabotai, comes to your house and you're not home at that moment, now he sees you're not home, he keeps on knocking, he's not able to get your attention, this Jew takes out a paper and he starts writing your whole letter on Shabbat. You come home, you see there's a letter in your door from so and so, you know this Jew desecrates Shabbat. Are you allowed to read that letter? Rav David Yosef Shlita tells us right over here, Rabotai, asur likro. It is forbidden for one to go ahead and read that letter on Shabbat, take it, flush it down the toilet, or rip it up. You're not allowed to read that letter. V'chen, and so too, asur listakel b'timonot שצולמו בשבת במצלמה על ידי יהודים מחלל שבת. Rabotai, and so too it is forbidden for one to look at pictures that were taken on Shabbat with a camera by Jews who desecrate Shabbat. Rabotai, look to what extent it's going over here. If a person came on Shabbat, took a picture, of your event or something, and he says, look at my phone, look, you're not allowed to look at that. Continues Rav Dov Yosef, and he says, Ve'av achar Shabbat yesh lehachmir bazeh. Even after Shabbat, Rabotai, one should be stringent in this and not even look at the writing or at the pictures. Aval, however, he says, Devarim shenichtavu otomu b'Shabbat b'shogeg. But if something was written on Shabbat, or it was taken, or somebody took pictures on Shabbat by accident, mutar likro l'sakel b'hem achar Shabbat. You're going to be allowed to read and look at them after Shabbat. So there's a very big difference where you do it intentionally, knowingly, versus if you do it by accident. If it was done intentionally, we're going to tell you to be stringent, not to look at it, not to read it. But if it was done by accident, somebody wrote a letter by accident on Shabbat, not knowing that today was Shabbat, or he didn't know the halakha that you're not allowed to write on Shabbat, that's called shogeg, that's called an accident. Or somebody went and he took a phone not knowing that it's a sur, or he forgot that it was Shabbat and he took a picture. Rabotai, in these cases we're going to tell you, on Shabbat itself you're not allowed to read it, you're not allowed to look at the picture. However, after Shabbat we're going to tell you, you're allowed to go ahead and read the letter and look at the picture. Continues Rav David Yosef, and he says, Umi shenimtza be'eretz Yisrael, if somebody's found in the land of Israel, asur lo l'shemo b'motzi Shabbat, it is forbidden for him to listen or to hear on Motzei Shabbat, kol radio, the radio station, haba'a michutz la'aretz, which comes from outside of the land of Israel, b'makom shehu adayin Shabbat, in a place where it is still Shabbat, כשיש באותה תחנת רדיו יהודים המחללים שבת, where if you have in that radio station Jews that are desecrating Shabbat. Comes Rav David Yosef, and he says like this: if a person who lives in Israel, for him Shabbat is already out, it's already Motzei Shabbat, Shabbat is finished, but Rabotai, they are 6 hours or 7 hours ahead of us. So now if they want to listen to a radio station which is operated by Jews that desecrate Shabbat, for us in America it's still Shabbat, Rav David Yosef Shluta says it is forbidden for him to listen to the radio station even though for him Shabbat came out. And so to the other way around, if you have a Jew that lives outside of the land of Israel, in the place where it's still not Shabbat, it is forbidden for him to listen to the radio station Me'eretz Yisrael, from the land of Israel, at the time where it's already Shabbat in the land of Israel. Again, Rabotai, if we are 6 hours or 7 hours back, so if we want to listen, for example, at 3 p.m., we want to listen to the radio station, what's going on, to the news in Eretz Yisrael, but by them it's already Shabbat. And if we know that in that news station or in that radio station, there are Jews that are working there, are Jews that desecrate Shabbat, we're not allowed to listen to the radio station, and we're not even allowed to watch the news if it's being presented by Jewish people that desecrate Shabbat. Now, Rabotai, the last point, now he's going to speak about the smell. Remember, we spoke about sound, sight, and now we're going to smell. Very simple, Rabotai. He says, Vehu adin, the same halach is going to apply. Bechol with all this, le'inyan hana'ah, in regards from benefiting mereich tov shel minei besamim shenitoshu b'Shabbat. If a person wants to go out and he wants to get benefit from a good smell of all types of spices that were ripped up on Shabbat, shedinam kidin shar devarim shenasta mahem malacha b'Shabbat. Their law is going to be like other things where the malacha was done with them on Shabbat. Very simple, Rabotai. If a person went ahead on Shabbat, he saw a nice rose or any other type of flowers, and he went and he ripped them on Shabbat, we're going to tell you it is forbidden for you to go ahead and benefit from it by smelling it. You're not allowed to get any benefit from smelling the roses or any other flowers which were detached on Shabbat. Summary. The main rule is like this. Ma'aseh Shabbat. What does Ma'aseh Shabbat mean? Work done on Shabbat, meaning prohibited work done on Shabbat. Anything done through Chilul Shabbat, a Shabbat violation, you cannot benefit from it on Shabbat. Some examples were given. The sound, radio or music. If a radio or music is turned on during Shabbat, you cannot listen to the radio or to the music. Even if done by non-religious Jews, Michalalei Shabbat, doesn't matter, you're not allowed to listen to the music or the radio. Even if turned on by mistake, shogeg, still forbidden on Shabbat. Even if turned on before Shabbat, but Jews are operating it on Shabbat, forbidden. You're not allowed to listen to it on Shabbat itself. Nevertheless, we did mention you don't have to leave your house if you hear it from your neighbors. The next topic we spoke about, seeing and reading. Cannot read things written on Shabbat by a Jew. Cannot look at pictures taken on Shabbat. After Shabbat, however, we spoke about, if done intentionally, best to avoid even after Shabbat. One should be stringent. However, if it was done by mistake, allowed after Shabbat. Regarding the time zone rule, cannot listen to radio from a place where it's still Shabbat. If Jews there are violating Shabbat. Example, in Israel after Shabbat, still cannot listen to a place where it is still Shabbat. Like we explained, if a person is in Israel and we are in New York, since Shabbat already over there came out, but we are 6 or 7 hours back, if you are listening to a radio station which is being run by desecrating Jews, meaning Jews that desecrate Shabbat, we're going to tell you you're not allowed to go ahead and listen to the radio or to the music, or you can even watch the news. Same the other way around. If you have people that are living in America, which is before Shabbat, and in Israel it's already Shabbat, people in America are not going to be allowed to listen to radio or news which is operated by Jews that desecrate Shabbat. Even though for us in America it's not Shabbat, doesn't matter. Since the people that are producing the material are the ones that are desecrating Shabbat, and they are in Israel and it's Shabbat, we're going to tell you you're not allowed to go ahead and listen to their news or their radio station, and so on and so forth. In regarding to smell, cannot enjoy fragrance from things picked on Shabbat. Same concept, Rabotai, if it was done by accident versus if it was done intentional. If it was done intentional, we're going to tell you to be stringent even after Shabbat, not to smell it. If it was done by accident, we're going to allow you to smell it after Shabbat. We're going to always tell you you're not allowed to listen. We're always going to tell you you're not allowed to smell the fragrance from the flowers. The bottom line is, Rabotai, anything produced through Shabbat violation by a Jew, no benefit on Shabbat, and sometimes even after Shabbat if done intentionally. Bottom line is, anything produced through Shabbat violation by a Jew, we're going to tell that when it comes to Shabbat, you're not allowed to benefit from it on Shabbat, and sometimes even after Shabbat, if done intentionally. Have a great day. Baruch Adonai L'Olam. Amen ve'amen.